Jurybox is a cloud-based application, which means that all your data is stored in a secure location in the cloud or on the internet, essentially. And you can access that data via your username and password on any device. So you can go to app.juryboxapp.com, or you can download the iPad app and log in with your credentials. And you'll see your cases along with any other cases that are in the same group as you. So if you're part of a larger organization and you're in a group that has other users that have made cases before, when you log in, you'll see a list of those cases. So these are the cases, and if we make a new case, you click this button here, this Create Case button. When you click that, you'll come in and you put in the standard information. So whatever your case number is, your case name, we'll just make something up here. And the new area, if you've used this before, is this field here, Demographics Tracking Categories. So the nice thing about this is there's no predefined categories that are determined for you. So you can track whatever categories you want, and you can choose the options for each of those categories. So for example, if I wanted to track race, gender, religion, anything I want, favorite color, you can track anything. See this? I'm just typing. So part of why I want to make this a bit ridiculous is so that you know that there's no restriction on what you can track for categories. So some of these may be standard, but as I mentioned, they're to your discretion. You can put categories to track, or you can put nothing in there. Both are fine. So if you put nothing in, it would work the same way as it does now. But if you did put new categories in there, those would pop up as drop downs, and you can select options for each of those categories that you choose to track. And then if you put this yes, if you decide that you want to put the demographics on the juror cards, those, whatever you select will show up on the card in the jury box. So I'll go ahead and fill the rest of these out here. We'll just do a standard 3 rows of 6 with the numbering starting in the upper left-hand corner, and I'll create my case. And when you log in, you'll see this is the jury box here, the dismissed area, and the jury pool. So if I was to add someone from the jury pool, let's say I sent out my questionnaires and I got the information back, I could go in here and let's just say we'll start with juror number 1. And now you have these 3 demographic categories that I chose. I had some other ones, favorite color, and those I got rid of those. I just have these three fields here. When you first start, there's no options to select yet. The options are put in as you type them. So for race, let's say your first juror was white, they were female, and they were Christian, something like that. Oops. All right. So now when you go in there, you'll see that those options are listed. And if I bring them up into the box, see, I don't actually see them on the card. If I go in here and I say show demographics on juror cards, I say yes there. Now it pops up on the card, and it also pops up down here in the jury pool. It's kind of this lighter text, so that if I make any comments down here about the juror, works nice. Those comments are made here in a darker color or down below in the juror card. So in this manner, you can add new options to each of the different demographics and then track them. So when I add another juror, this is the second one, I now can select the options that I used before, or I can add new ones. So let's say this is Asian, male, religion, none. I would have that, and that's now on the card. So now when I add the third one, I have both those options I've used before that are there. Oops, I picked female. I meant to pick male. So let me go to a case that I already have the some demographics filled out for some people here. So this is a case where I've gone through. I had originally 12 prosecution peremptory challenges and 12 peremptory challenges for the defense. I've already gone through and dismissed all of those individuals here. Each one had the demographics information I showed from before, so race, gender, and religion. And I've gone through this process. So the nice thing is, not only do you see them while you're tracking, and not only can you select them from the drop-down, these options that I've put in here. So I've already chosen these options from before, and so I can choose these different options. So that's a nice perk, but the real power of this is the analytics. So if I go in here, it's this button, I click this, demographics here, I go in, and I can see charts for each of my different demographics that I've chosen. So let me explain what this means, because it does take a little bit of time to digest the information. So the options that I had chosen for race were white, black, Asian, Hispanic, Middle Eastern. You can choose whatever options you want. They don't have to be these, but those are the ones I happen to choose. And I'm given the breakdown of my jury by each of those different demographics. So in this example, I have 33% of my jury is white, 23% black, 20% Asian, 17% Hispanic, and so forth. So that gives you an idea of what your the demographic makeup is of your jury for this category, which is race. The next thing is the blue and the orange show what percentage of the peremptory challenges that were used by both the prosecution and defense were from each of these categories. So for example, what this is showing here is 8% of the jurors that were dismissed by the defense were Middle Eastern. So that way you can see, you can compare the green to the orange or the blue and say, all right, I've dismissed, or the other party has dismissed the same, or roughly the same percentage of that demographic of my jury. And so if, for example, and these will never be perfect, obviously, but if you are around the same percentage as the jury population, you know that there was no bias. But I've actually, on purpose, introduced a bias here that shows, 20% of my jury was Asian, but the defense has dismissed 42% of their dismissals, were Asian. So because there's such a big difference between these two, that could be a red flag. You could say, oh, there was potentially some bias happening here because there was only 20% of the population that were Asian, but the defense has dismissed, 42% of their dismissals were from that category. So there's a potential bias happening. So for a defense attorney, this is protection for you to make sure that your dismissals fall generally within the categories of the distribution of your jury population. For the prosecution, it's protection for you. For the defense, you can make a case to make a Batson-Wheeler motion using this data. We've got this also, I showed race, which I know is kind of a hot topic right now, which is part of why I showed that example, but there's also, it shows these same, the same breakdown for any category you want, even favorite color, if that was one of the options that you chose to track. I've got it for male, female here. I've got it for religion. You can see there's some, maybe a slight bias here, but it may not be enough to really warrant making that motion. But if you wanted to look at each of these individually here, the dismissed category still, you can look at all the jurors in dismissed and you can see, who is that again? Oh yeah, this, and kind of look through and study it that way as well. One other thing I'll do just by way of explanation is this option, include jury pool. What this does is it takes the juror population and includes the jury pool in it. Now, by default, it's not checked because most of the time you won't necessarily need to know who hasn't been questioned yet. So in your jurisdiction, if those that are in the jury pool haven't been questioned, then you probably by default wouldn't include them because they wouldn't be a fair representation of those that you've questioned and had an opportunity to dismiss. If, however, though, in your jurisdiction, you can dismiss from the jury pool, you can include that here, and then the demographic includes everyone from the jury box, the dismissed, and the jury pool. Okay. What questions do you have about this so far? You can feel free to unmute or type in the chat. I'm not seeing questions, so either everyone's really bored or I'm doing a really good job of explaining it. All right, here's the question. Can you aggregate all racial minorities compared to white jurors to see a pattern? In what I've done here, not yet, we don't have that option. However, what you could do is add one more category, and you could just say minority. And then once I've added that new demographic, I could go in here and then say something simple. Yes, they are a minority, which that wasn't right because they're white in this case. Let me do that again. What? Yes, they are a minority right here. Or, excuse me, no, they're not. And then you could track that, and then here, and the data won't be there yet because I would have to put it in for all jurors, and I would recommend start doing this from the very beginning. You'd have that right here. So I only put it in. So right now, essentially, I've got 3% yes, 3% no. The rest are, other because I didn't put anything in here. But the power of being able to track anything you want here lets you track anything you want. When we first, about a year ago, when JuryBox was released, we had demographics tracking at that time. But we hard coded it. We let people only choose certain categories. But it was really limited because a lot of attorneys were asking for more and more and more. And so what we ended up doing is taking it out. And we hadn't had it for a year. And so we said, well, if you need to track things, just type in the comments. And that works, right? You can type those things. There's two issues with that. One is I think people like to be able to select from a drop-down. It makes it a little bit more orderly and quicker to choose options. The other thing is it's hard to track free typing. So when you have the drop-down, you now have the power of analytics. This is something we're definitely open to adding to. This is the first chart that we decided to do to help you understand your demographics for different categories. But now that the data is in there, you can really do whatever you want with it. And of course, all of this is private. You're the only one who sees it unless you're in a group with somebody else and you want them to see that data. Great question. Sherry is asking, are the same features available in the app? Yes, they are. And it looks about the same. The button's slightly different. So let me pull up the app just real quick. So I've got it here. I'm in that same case. So I'm in a different, I logged in with a collaborating user. And so I can see these same cases here. So if I go and I want to see those same plots, they're up here. It's this button, this little graph button. I click that. And now I've got these options. Instead of listing them all, they're kind of categorized. So if I click race, I've got this chart here with the same, the colors are slightly different and things, but it's the same piece of data. If you wanted to include the jury pool, you can click it here. So same features, it's just it looks more Apple-ish. Okay, so it's a little bit cleaner look that Apple gives you. We have just a few minutes left. I wanted to show another new feature that we've added. So this may not be applicable for everybody. This is mostly applicable for your admin for your organization. So if you're not one, it may not be as applicable, but you might still be interested. So if I go to this account page, and all of you have this, if you are an admin though, yours is going to look slightly different than if you don't have admin rights. You'll see what your role is here. You can see this. You either have a role as admin or user. If you've been given admin rights, then it will be given, it's here. Initially, I had to give those out, and I talked to each of the organizations and gave an admin rights to the people that should have it. If you don't have it and you feel like you should, you can reach out to me. Otherwise, it's up to the admin of your organization to give you admin rights if you wanted it. They have that authority to do that. What the admin can do is come in here and edit a user, and they can add something to their name. So I'm adding their last name here. You can't change the email. That's done. You have to contact us if ever that changes. That's kind of like, that's your username forever. And then you can choose to change groups. So if you wanted to add them to a new group, I have 2 groups in here, felony and misdemeanor. Some larger organizations have many groups, and you can choose between them. And then you can also make them an admin just by clicking this. If you have enough accounts available, so in this, I paid for 4 accounts in this demo environment, and I have 1 account that I'm not using. See, I have 3 here, and I've paid for 4. As long as I have another, if I've paid for another account, this plus button will appear here. So I can click that plus and then add another user. If I add a user, I'm going to do this real quick just to show you what it looks like. I'm going to I have this dummy account that I'm going to use to show how this works. I'm going to go ahead and add this user to my misdemeanor group and add them as a user. If I click save here, they're added, but you can see their status is pending. That's because they haven't gone in and created their username and password yet. Okay, so this individual here, I'm going to go in and I received an email. That email will be sent to them, and then they need to go and click this link and create their account. So I'm going to go ahead and go into this. When they click the link, most of the information will be populated for them. You can see the organization is JuryBox. The email has been populated. I'm going to go ahead and put my name in here and my password and sign up. Now when I go in, you'll see I've got all the cases from that misdemeanor group. And then I come into my account here. That's Sam Smith, the one I added. I'm in the misdemeanor group. and my status is now confirmed. You'll see though, I'm logged in as a user and not as an admin. Because I'm logged in as an admin, I don't have the ability to edit these. I don't have the ability to add more users. An admin's the only one who can do that. So if I go out here and go back to my A. Hepworth account, I am an admin here. You'll see I have 0 accounts available. I can't add another user since I don't have another account. There's 2 options. If I needed to add another user, I can either delete one. That would be if someone left your organization or maybe was reassigned so that they're not doing jury trials anymore. You can actually delete them by clicking this delete user. It'll ask you, are you sure this is permanent? All of they're wiped out. Their cases though, however, remain. Or you can edit your account here and then you could add another one. My annual cost is 0 since it's me, but yours will put however much cost that is going to be to add that additional user. And I will say it is prorated for the year. So if you are halfway through the year and you add an additional user, it'll only cost half the amount for that user for the additional rest of that year. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and cancel here, and I'm going to delete this this user. I don't need them in here. So you see it when I deleted them, I now have 1 account available, and then I can add 1 more. This next cycle, all this is just if you want any changes for the next year, you could have those go into effect. That won't affect your pricing today, but starting next cycle, your next year's bill would adjust based on the numbers that you chose for the next cycle. That's all the prepared training I had for today. So thank you very much, and have a good time using JuryBox.